When we picture the medieval past, our minds often conjure up images of endless, untamed forests stretching as far as the eye can see, mysterious places where legendary outlaws like Robin Hood could simply disappear, living wild and free beyond the reach of the law. The idea of the lone survivalist, a master of the woods who answers to no one, is deeply appealing and has shaped our popular imagination for centuries. It suggests that with enough skill and courage, anyone could slip away from society and carve out a life by their own wits, surviving on what the forest provides. But this vision is more fairy tale than fact, a romantic story that glosses over the harsh realities of medieval life. The truth is, the reality of being an outlaw in the Middle Ages was far more complicated and far less glamorous than the legends suggest. Outlaws weren't solitary hermits or rugged individualists, braving the wild alone. Their very survival depended on connections, with friends, family, and even sympathetic villagers who were willing to take risks to help them. Outlaws needed a network of supporters to provide food, shelter, and crucial information about the movements of the authorities. Rather than escaping society, they were deeply woven into its fabric, relying on the goodwill and cooperation of others to survive. Success as an outlaw wasn't about hiding from people. It was about knowing the right people and being able to trust them. The forests themselves weren't empty wildernesses either. They were busy, managed landscapes, full of workers, livestock, and watchful eyes. The law couldn't simply be outrun by ducking behind a tree. Patrols and informants made the woods a dangerous place for fugitives. Outlaws survived because they were part of a network, a community project, not a solo adventure. Planning, sharing resources, and mutual protection were essential. The myth of the lone wolf outlaw is powerful, but ultimately misleading. Real outlaws rarely acted alone. True survival was about loyalty, mutual benefit, and the strength of social ties, qualities that bound people together in times of hardship. To truly understand how outlaws thrived, we need to look at the structures and relationships that defined medieval society, not just the legends. Their story is one of community, cooperation, and shared struggle, not splendid isolation. So let's set aside the Hollywood version for a moment and explore the real world of the medieval outlaw, a world shaped by alliances, risks, and the need for trust. The truth is not only more interesting but also more relevant to our understanding of how people have always relied on each other to survive. In the end, outlaw survival was always a group effort, a testament to the power of community in even the most challenging times. The so-called wildwood of medieval England was anything but wild. Despite the romantic image of untamed forests stretching for miles, these woodlands were carefully shaped by human hands and strict rules. Forests were highly managed, valuable resources owned by kings and lords. Every tree, animal, and patch of land was accounted for, and the boundaries of these forests were clearly marked and fiercely protected. Forest law protected game and vegetation, making these areas the king's private hunting grounds. Breaking these laws could mean harsh punishments, from heavy fines to imprisonment or even mutilation. Officials like foresters and verderers patrolled constantly, watching for poachers and illegal activity. Their presence was a daily reminder that the forest was under constant surveillance. Local villagers had limited rights, grazing pigs, collecting firewood, but everything was tightly controlled. Even gathering fallen branches or letting animals forage required permission, and breaking the rules could mean losing your livelihood. The forest was a busy, populated place, not a place to disappear. People traveled, worked, and lived at its edges and within its boundaries, making it a hub of daily life. Anyone living there in secret would quickly be noticed. The constant movement of people and officials meant that strangers stood out. A lone outlaw trying to survive by poaching would be caught fast. The risks were high, and the consequences severe, making a solitary life in the woods nearly impossible. The forest was part of society, not an escape from it. Villages, manors, and roads were woven into the woodland, connecting people and places. It was filled with roads, villages, manors, and even industry. Charcoal burners, woodcutters, and craftsmen all worked here, making the forest a center of economic activity. Outlaws couldn't treat the forest as a wilderness to conquer. The reality was a landscape full of eyes and ears, where isolation was rare. They had to navigate its social landscape, using networks of people and places. Survival depended on knowing who to trust and where to find help. The real key to survival wasn't the trees, it was the people within and around the forest. Community ties, favors, and alliances mattered more than any hiding spot. The forest provided cover, but only social connections provided safety. Without allies, even the thickest woods offered little protection. Outlaws needed allies, not just hiding places. Friendship, loyalty, and shared interests were the true shields against danger. The myth of the empty, lawless wood is just that, a myth. The real medieval forest was a place of order, community, and constant watchfulness. Real survival meant blending into the fabric of a managed, watched, and inhabited landscape, To thrive, you had to become part of the world within the woods, not apart from it. The forest was society's backyard, not its frontier, a living, breathing part of medieval life, shaped as much by people as by nature itself. Outlaws didn't survive alone. They thrived through networks, relying on the strength and loyalty of those around them. The most successful outlaws led gangs and depended on a web of support that stretched far beyond the forest. These groups were tightly knit, with bonds forged by necessity and trust. Family members risked everything to hide them, friends passed along secret information, and even local lords sometimes turned a blind eye or offered protection in exchange for favors. This network was essential for food, shelter, and selling stolen goods. Without it, outlaws would have quickly been caught or starved. Ordinary people helped outlaws for many reasons, sometimes out of fear, sometimes because they shared the same grievances, or simply because they resented the harshness of officials and tax collectors. Sometimes, outlaws were seen as heroes fighting corrupt authorities, becoming legends in their own time, and symbols of hope for the oppressed. Support was mutual. Outlaws shared loot, settled disputes, or protected villages from outside threats, earning the loyalty of those they helped. They became part of the local power structure, not just fugitives hiding in the shadows, but active participants in village life. Their survival depended on being useful, or at least less threatening, than the authorities. Outlaws had to constantly prove their value to the community. Outlaws operated as alternative sources of justice and authority, stepping in where the official system failed or was absent. They weren't invisible, they were integrated, often moving freely among villagers who saw them as one of their own. The lone wolf image is a myth. Real outlaws were community players, deeply woven into the fabric of rural life. Their lifeline was the people around them, a network of friends, family, and allies who made survival possible. Survival was about relationships, not isolation. Every connection could mean the difference between life and death. Outlaws gave back to their supporters, creating a cycle of loyalty and mutual benefit that kept both sides strong. Their story is one of social survival, not solitary struggle, a testament to the power of friendship and community in the harshest of times. The Folville gang shows how outlawry worked in practice. Led by Eustace Folville and his brothers, they terrorized the English Midlands for nearly 20 years. They weren't peasants, they were gentry, lords of their manor, with status and connections. Their neighbors and tenants sheltered them, and other gentry families offered support. The Folvilles used their social position to evade the law, not hide from it. Outlawry was a business. They kidnapped for ransom, needed safe houses, and trusted intermediaries. Their network protected them and enabled their crimes. Eventually they bought their way back into respectability, with royal pardons. Their success wasn't about woodcraft, it was about social engineering. They managed allies, bribed officials, and exploited local power dynamics. The Folvilles were insiders playing an outsider's game. Their long career proves that survival depended on manipulating society, not escaping it. They were a criminal corporation rooted in their community. The lone outlaw is a myth. The real story is one of organized social crime. Medieval law enforcement was weak and local. There was no professional police, just sheriffs with limited power and resources. Law relied on community cooperation, not central authority. The hue and cry system only worked if people wanted to help. If locals supported or feared outlaws, they stayed silent. Sheriffs couldn't police vast areas alone, and needed local support to form posses. If the gentry sided with outlaws, lawmen were powerless. This decentralized system let organized crime flourish. Outlaws, with strong local roots, could vanish into friendly villages. Witnesses refused to testify, and juries wouldn't convict. The law was slow and weak. Outlaws survived by making sure the chase never started. Survival was about community consent, not running from the law. Outlawry was an active business, not just hiding in the woods. Gangs needed money for food, weapons, bribes, and support. Their main business was extortion and protection rackets, demanding payment for protection. Many people paid because official law was too weak to help. Outlaws became a parallel government, collecting their own taxes. Robbery and kidnapping were strategic, targeting wealthy travelers with inside information from their network. Success depended on planning, intelligence, and relationships. The gang functioned like a company: leaders, members, suppliers, and customers. They rewarded friends and punished enemies. Their economic activities sustained their network. Outlaws didn't detach from the economy, they created their own niche within it. Survival was about managing people and resources, not just living off the land. Modern preppers focus on self-reliance, stockpiling supplies and skills to survive alone if society collapses. The ideal is the lone wolf, defending a fortress of solitude against outsiders. Preppers see others as threats, not allies, and prepare to defend their resources. This approach is the opposite of the medieval outlaws' networked survival. The lone wolf fantasy is shaped by the same myths as the outlaw legend, but real survival, past and present, is rarely about isolation. The lonely fortress often becomes a trap, not a refuge. The lone wolf prepper strategy is unsustainable. One person can't handle all the tasks of long-term survival: food, water, defense, and care. Illness or injury can collapse the whole system. Stockpiles run out. Producing food is labor-intensive. A single person can't be a farmer, guard, doctor, and engineer at once. Human survival has always depended on communities and shared labor. A lone fortress is a tempting target for groups. Outlaws understood this. They survived as groups, not individuals. In real crises, it's the cooperative groups that endure. The lone wolf is usually the first to fail. Humans are social animals. Cooperation is our greatest survival tool. The myth of the self-sufficient individual doesn't hold up in reality. Survival is about teamwork, not going it alone. The lesson from medieval outlaws and modern preppers is clear. Rugged individualism is a dangerous fantasy. Real survival comes from building strong, reliable networks. The Folvilles gang thrived because they mastered social connections, not because they lived off acorns. Survival is a team sport. Trust, cooperation, and community are the true currencies. A fortress can be besieged, a stockpile exhausted, an individual can fall ill. The most resilient people are those with strong social ties. The medieval outlaw's wisdom is simple. Resilience is found in our connections. Our greatest strength is our ability to form communities. The best survival skill is building friendships and being a trusted group member. To survive, you must be part of a pack, not a lone wolf.